welcome to today's webinar. Like a phoenix rising from the ashes, AIIM leaders should seize the opportunity. I'm Kate Hoffman, Manager of Market Intelligence at AIIM, and AIIM is your host and producer of today's event. NetDocuments is the underwriter of today's webinar, and we thank them for their support, and thank you for taking the time to join us today. Before we get started, I want to share a few tips for participating in today's webinar. Look to the chat feature where we'll share the resources we have for you, and try going in there now and saying hello and where you're joining from. You can ask questions for the speakers with the Q&A or chat feature, and we'll do our best to get to all of them later in the webcast. At the end of the webinar, please take our feedback survey, as we truly value your feedback on how we did today. And this webinar is being recorded and will be posted to AIIM's Resources Learning Center page in a few days. And now to introduce today's speakers, we have Peggy Winton, President and CEO of AIIM. With years of program, product, and business development experience, Peggy is responsible for the strategic, technical, and business direction of AIIM. Peggy believes that every organization is on, or should be on, a digital transformation journey. And at the heart of this journey is the drive toward understanding, anticipating, and redefining internal and external customer experiences. Peggy joined AIIM in January 2002 and enjoys a reputation as a persuasive and engaging communicator, cross-functional team leader, and public speaker and author. And we also have Jed Cawthorn, who is the Director of Product Management for NetDocuments. Jed is an experienced strategy consultant specializing in the digital workplace, ECM and records management, and is also a member of the AIIM Toronto chapter. And now I'll hand this back over to Peggy to begin our webinar.
Hi there. Hi, Kate. Thanks so much. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to be with us today. I am so looking forward to the next few minutes and being with our guest underwriter, Jed Cawthorn. Jed and I talk a lot about the issues and solutions that we're going to discuss today. I'm sure you feel that the experiences of the past 18 months have exposed a lot of weak points in our information management strategies and practices in most of our organizations. You could probably say there's a lot of upside, and we certainly want to get to that today. I think there's immense opportunity for information management leaders, and we want to focus today on how to leverage those opportunities and really elevate them. You know, we're all facing increasing volumes of information and disparate workforces. The work from home situation has put all of that on steroids. But there's a third force that I think is more influential than all of those, and that's just new customer demands. We talk about that a lot. And the results of that is that we, in this practice of AIIM, or specifically information governance or records management, we really can no longer view our practice solely through a tactical, cost minimization or risk minimization filter. If we continue to do that, I don't think we're ever going to change the status or perception of information management. And according to those of you that we polled recently, and thank you for participating in AIIM's research efforts, AIIM is often more of an afterthought than part of business strategy. Our extensive research that we conducted earlier this year identified the key issues that organizations are absolutely going to have to solve. They're going to have to overcome if they want to transform. And they can only transform if they align their information management decisions with their business decisions. That's easier said than done. It's going to require new mindsets and modernized practices and tools, I think. What hurts me and concerns me is that I don't think information management leaders realize how to take their knowledge about what information should be created, captured, shared, and preserved, and more excitingly and more importantly, how to extract intelligence from it and parlay that into new wins that gain influence and gain participation and access to really impactful kinds of projects and innovation. So today, Jed Cawthorn and I are going to take a little bit of a look back at what I think are the most compelling issues of this year, and a look forward at ways that we think information management professionals can and really should influence the actions and decisions to resolve those issues. Hi, Jed. Before we get started, I would love for you to tell folks about your unique perspective because you've worked for 10 years on the user side, just like many of our audience members, in financial services, education, manufacturing, and other industries. And now you're serving a variety of users on the sell side as a Net Documents member of that team. So is there one thing that you've learned in making that switch from the buy side to the sell side in terms of attitudes and perceptions when it comes to information management?
Hi, Peggy. Lovely to be sharing the stage with you again, even though it's not in person.
And even though you're not in your Middle Ages Crusades gear, a little aside for the audience, in his spare time and on weekends, Jed likes to dress up and charge across fields and things.
Yeah, and hit people with swords. Let's not make it just dressing up. So I was doing the math, and actually you can tell by the gray in the beard, it's 21 years in IT and coming up on 18 years in information management. So so most of my time has been on the buy side, and now I'm on the sell side. So what's different? And can I say everything is the same but nuanced differences? I don't know. I kind of always want to take the consulting answer and say it depends. I mean, obviously from an organizational perspective, right? I mean, I jumped from a 45,000 person bank to a 350 person software company. So internally, there's a lot of difference because there's completely different context. But in a product management role, and we're a cloud services platform that offers document management and document-centric collaboration to any customer, whatever they want. I can bring that 18 years of information management experience from all those different organizations into the conversations with our customers. And certainly that long experience and context does help me understand their pain, their issues, what they're looking for. Sometimes when they ask for functionality and we might not have it. So yeah, I mean, there are similarities, but obviously there is a great deal of difference between the effort information management professionals put in on the buy side, running their projects within their organizations and looking at vendors with that critical eye. Am I going to buy this guy? Am I going to buy that guy? Am I going to buy both of them and stitch them together? Versus what we do internally, where our own information management is very much, constrained, I would say. But so, consulting answer, Peggy, some things are the same, some things are very different.
We did an interesting survey a few years ago and talked about what solution providers think users want, and then ask the users what they want. And there was quite a gap, and I think you'll be helping to to smooth that and really close that gap. We recorded a podcast with you a few weeks ago, Jed, and you remember that we took a look at some of those key findings from our 2021, we called it State of Intelligent Information Management. And there was a lot to unpack there. I don't think we need to revisit all of those conclusions. We've certainly manifested them throughout the year in a lot of our educational program, but some of them I think might be worthy of an additional little poke and prod because things have changed already in this year, in these months, and it's changing all the time. So maybe we can present some slightly different perspectives now that several months have gone by since that research was first conducted. And I have to thank some of our friends in the industry that have taken our findings and have really amplified them. I still think they might have missed the point just a little bit on what the real reason for this disconnect and the conclusion we reached, and really what to do about it. So we'd be remiss if we don't touch on that. But the study's overarching conclusion is that there is a sizable disconnect between AIIM, or information governance strategies and practices, and business strategies. I think it's worth really exploring this now and maybe challenging some of the rationale behind all that. So we're going to tee up a poll and have a little discussion about that, because one of the implied reasons for the disconnect is that no senior leader is given the highest enterprise level responsibility for information. It just, it doesn't live there. Similar comments have been made about information almost seemingly invisible in organizations. If you were gonna count it as an asset, wouldn't it almost appear on your balance sheets? Always an interesting thing. I know Doug Leahy has tried to really talk about the value of information in that way. So weigh in. We're going to ask you, pick only your top reason why you think the C-suite, your executives, fail to align their business and information management decisions. Just pick one. Is it that there's just a lack of high-level responsibility for that? Is it the invisibility of information? Or is it that information management is just an afterthought? Maybe it's viewed as a cost of doing business. So strategy, innovation, and growth just doesn't really play a part in that. How do you feel? Tell us how you feel. We'll give you a few minutes. And Jed, I'm going to put you on the spot in just a second and see how you would have voted and why.
But you know me, I won't be shy in telling you why.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. I just tried to vote again, but it wouldn't let me because I'm a panelist.
That's right. All right. So Kate will put up the responses now, if you would. All right. Okay. All right. I think that's great. I'm proud of you. We've had a lot of discussion about this. You know, is it? It could be any one of these, of course. What do you think, Jed? How would you have voted? Or maybe there was another choice that's not on here that you feel strongly about.
Sure, I feel strongly about it, full stop. But no, I would have picked from the options presented. I would have gone for option A. No senior leader is given the highest enterprise level responsibility for information, because that has been my experience over most of that last, you know, coming up on 20 years. So I'm not saying I've never worked. Well, actually, I will say I've worked in one organization in all that time where there was a C-suite senior exec leadership position over information for the whole organization. One. And so I'm sure there are others out there, so they do exist, but most of the organizations I've worked for, I've never had such a role. So that's the one I would have chosen. I was really surprised to see the amount of people who'd picked option C there.
Yeah.
Because I've
Well,
definitely worked in those organizations too. Yeah.
well, you could say that if in your opinion, if there is senior level responsibility, the other things would resolve
Fall
themselves.
out from it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I wanted to use a prop. So we'll see how this comes up on the video. So when we talk, oh, look, you can see it, the book. So this book came out in 2007. So 14 years ago, the lovely Bob Boyko wrote this book, and it's called Laughing at the CIO because his premise is that chief information officers were not then, and I would say are not now, interested in information. Chief information officers are really heads of IT, and they're dealing with the technology side of things, and they don't really get a good grip of the information side of their portfolio. And I look back at that and think, oh my gosh, it was 2007 and we still haven't moved on as an industry. Do I laugh or do we cry, Peggy? I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, such a good point. And CTOs and IT groups, a lot of our colleagues and members of our community lament the fact that they get a lot of attention and they get a lot of budget as well.
Yeah.
So that's a wonderful segue into what we're going to talk about. I maybe am not haven't been fair in terms of the multiple choices offered, because I actually think that there might be another reason, and it does go back to this issue that I think we in this industry for way too long have wrongly focused on just the cost reduction or the risk reduction and the compliance with regulations. We speak fear, uncertainty, and doubt really well. We've got that down. But my experience, and it sounds like you've had that, is that executives do continue to play the negative lottery, if you will, and thinking, oh, it won't happen to me, or we'll accept that risk. There's so many bigger fish to fry, so many other things. We were on one of AIIM's coffee and conversation groups meetings just the other day, and one of our community members said, oh yeah, my top level executives say that if, in this case, her information governance initiatives or department don't get any attention because the exec says, if it doesn't help move product, I don't care about it. And there were a lot of grumblings and oh no, and gnashing of teeth. And I had to have a little tough love and say, well, no, of course not. In this competitive environment, and as organizations are striving for innovation and creativity, things just get a higher priority there. And as soon as we get over this and start focusing on how to be part of the business conversations, I think the better that will be. Jed, you mentioned that there was one organization where there was an executive charged at the high level. Don't name names, but what type of organization was it? I'm really curious.
We might as well name names, because if anybody goes and looks at my resume, I've only ever worked at one university. So
okay.
it's a very big university in the UK, which is a distance learning university. So hundreds of thousands of students at any one time. But it's a full university. It's not just a distance learning organization. It does leading edge research. It has planetary sciences who are always like running missions with the European Space Agency and NASA. So a very big school, with hundreds of thousands of students and millions of dollars in research grants. And this is going back to 2004, this guy was already talking about digital transformation back then. And so he was given the remit to put his arms around all of it, whether that was technology for learning and teaching, whether it was to support research, whether it was to support the admin. And so we were very lucky that, you know, one person with a holistic view, but also the responsibility. And so if things went bad, he was going to carry the can. And so, you know, I think there's always a key element is there's got to be with responsibility. What is it? Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but it was his, you just said it, it was his holistic view of the business of being in the university, right? Every element of it. And that to me is key. I think the reason why this year has been one of reckoning is because of customer expectations. And that could be the university community, it could be potential students, etc. But the demands that we are all now feeling for convenience and availability is going to far outlast the pandemic-induced demand when it comes to the kinds of products and services that we make available, but also the way that we deliver them faster and more convenient than ever before. And our executives are feeling that pressure. And usually, you know, it's customer intelligence, it's customer meeting points and frontline business where the growth is always seen. So as we look ahead to the new year, I'd like to really challenge our community to hone the proof points around that particular driver. So Jed, knowing that every organization is unique, what's some advice you have for changing conversations around products, around customers? You know, that is not usually in our vocabulary.
Yeah, I think for all the information professionals who are watching, whether they're AIM members or not, I think what we need to do is generate a good understanding of the pain points and the issues our business colleagues are dealing with. So as we strive to understand what their key drivers are, what their KPIs are, what is pushing them. So to your point, we have to move the needle, right? We have to add to the bottom line and not just talk about regulatory driven efficiencies or what have you. So as an information management professional, try to understand what the customers are challenged with and how that flows down through what our business colleagues are challenged with. And then, and obviously this is highly contextual based on your industry and whatever it is you're producing or selling, but once we can understand some of that, then we can help them by bringing our specialism and our expertise to bear, but we bring it to bear on their problems. So I think, you know, probably somebody we both know very well once said up on a stage, we don't do information management for the sake of doing information management, right? It's there for a reason. And so we have to make sure that we're well aligned with our business colleagues and find that reason. And then we benefit because we're showing that we can help add value.
I think that's great. Adding to that, our CIPs always say, ask what problem are we trying to solve, for which our information that may be hidden, that may be in all kinds of different forms, maybe locked down, maybe not. How can that information help make your life easier, solve problems, etc.? That's fantastic. And we didn't even have a chance to chat about that beforehand. Checks in the mail. But there are two other points that our CIPs made, and I really like some of these. One is to identify cultural pressure points that can be leveraged. One company in particular said, this year, our executives say we are going to be the most customer or client-centric company in our particular space. Well, content and information are at the heart of delivering on that strategic priority. So they use that cultural norm to get senior executives to buy into an AIIM strategy around centrally managing information so that it would deliver what folks needed. I love that. Another one is very similar to what you said, Jed, about getting involved from the outset in assessing a product and understanding exactly what types of information that product is going to be touching or managing or using. And you may go into it thinking that you're going to identify all the risks or what you should be doing, but that's not what your true value is. Your true value is to ensure business success. And it takes asking a lot of questions there.
It's a constant conversation as well. And I think that's the thing, right? We can't confine this to a product release or an initiative. And I think we sometimes get, well, we have two problems, right? We get siloed within the organization, and we've discussed that, lack of a single C-suite exec with a view of everything. So yes, we get siloed, but that's fine. Life is what it is. So, go make those relationships and go and generate that expertise within the line of business you've been asked to help. But then we also get time bounded, and it's like, cool, go and help these people build or release this product or service. Well, what happens when it's released? Like, what is the lifetime of that product? Is it constantly generating information? Whilst it's constantly generating information, what if a new regulation comes along about how long you can keep it? So we have to help our business friends, because they will be focused on getting something out of the door and generating revenue. And for very good reasons, they may have a short-term tactical horizon and they're not looking beyond that. Well, that's where we can say, but you know what, this product is harvesting, generating information which is going to last for 20 years. We need to think about that, and we need to think about the impact of that.
Well, I'm glad you brought that part up, because obviously there is a risk and value balance. And one of our CIPs suggests almost creating an internal framework for assigning both risk and value to key sources of information. And I would hint at customer information, what things should be on the short list. And they say tackle those things that are both high value and high risk first. Yeah. So I like that prioritization. Jed, in the little bit of time we have left, let's maybe almost preview some of the research and analysis that AIIM will be performing at the end of this year that will inform all of our educational programming going into 2022. And it does jump off from the other big tension points or forces that we've said have made 2021 such a year of reckoning. And that's that organizations are losing the battle against information chaos. They are. I mean, you'd have to be living in a cave if you didn't already feel that you've long since lost control over that. But if we poke at that one too, Jed, information chaos has been building for a long time. But do you think that last year's rush to accommodate remote work and the proliferation of distributed information sources and stores, do you think that's responsible for maybe a better awareness of the need?
Yeah, so it's a difficult question. And being an ex-consultant, I'm going to take the consultant's version of the Fifth Amendment and say it depends. So I think some organizations were obviously better set up and prepared for the mass exodus and everybody worked from home than others. And so, for the majority of those organizations where the C-suite and the IT division had to be very tactical and deal with how to get laptops out to people, or You know, how do you deal with the mail room and physical mail when we're not allowed to have anybody in the office?
Yeah.
You know, they were dealing with very tactical issues like that, and setting up security for their remote workers, etc. But even organizations that were better placed to handle that, they still had to have those conversations about, okay, so now people are working from home and we were okay, it was easy to figure out, how do we support them? What's the digital equivalent of the water cooler conversation or the serendipitous hallway chat? And so I don't think any organization necessarily had it easy. It's just that some had it easier than others. And, you know, when you think about what they've been through and how they did deal with it, has that helped them to go beyond COVID chaos and deal with overall information chaos? Have they learned lessons that can be applied elsewhere? Have they learned tips and tricks? Are they taking, you know, the whole "let no good crisis go to waste" saying into mind? And so hopefully, you know, they've been through this terrible pandemic and it forced them to look at things and it forced them to do things. And I hope that they don't, you know, just then drop that and go back to same old, same old.
Yeah. Well, here's an interesting question. I've been a little bit skeptical myself of what our executives say about fears of privacy and what our AIIM community members say. Do you think that the fear of keeping too much information because of e-discovery, data privacy, you would say privacy concerns, do you think that's actually helping and changing attitudes about the work of AIIM professionals? Or is there a danger that nuggets of value could be lost in the process and our AIIM practitioners are only kind of watering the seeds of discontent, I guess I would call it, when it comes to their executives and their users, because they want all the data on their customers that they can get.
Yeah, absolutely they do, from a business perspective. And again, that's a difficult one. It depends on your industry and it depends what you do. And I come from more recently, you know, banking, a heavily regulated industry, financial services, and, you know, Net Documents sells to an awful lot of law firms and corporate legal departments. So two heavily regulated industries. So I've seen that transition though, from records management really being keep everything to records management being actually that's defensible disposition and keep as little as possible, and, you know, delete everything as early as you can, because then if we get sued you can't find it for discovery. And yet we don't seem to have had the conversation in the middle, or rather we've ping-ponged. We've gone from one extreme to the other perhaps, and the information management professionals need to be in there digging at the business requirements and saying, well, you know, defensible disposition, it would be cool if we could delete this in a year, but actually there's some real business value if we keep this for 3 or 5, so that you guys can look back on it, generate some long tail. And so I think, yeah, there's, you know, our membership, and non-AIM members, all the AIIM practitioners definitely need to be in there helping people understand, you know, delete or keep. Never simple.
Yeah. All right. So I'm becoming a lot more curious and confused about whether there really is a difference between data and information in the rest of the world versus our community that's really close to us. You know, we have made the distinction between structured and unstructured information, between information and data. In fact, research says, oh yes, there is definitely a difference, but the rest of the organization doesn't make that distinction. Let me read something to you, Jed, and this is Gartner's definition of data literacy. the ability to read, write, and communicate data in context, including an understanding of data sources, analytical methods and techniques applied, and the ability to describe the use case, application, and resulting value. I don't know about you, but that sounds a lot like what we at AIIM would use to describe our intelligent information management practice and aspirations. So what's the difference? Why don't data architects and information governance folks talk or speak the same language?
What is the difference? What day is it? What phase of the moon are we in? Is the tide going in or is the tide coming out? Look, I mean, language is how we express ourselves and how we use our intelligence. But sometimes I think we get wrapped up in it, and we get wrapped up in these definitions. And I would also say I'm a knowledge management practitioner, and we've been through this in the knowledge management world where people get way too stressed about what the definition of knowledge is. So
according to Faber College in Animal House, knowledge is good.
That's going back a bit. That's the simplest definition ever. I would say, and this is what I always say in the knowledge management practitioner conversations, is just use whatever labels work in your organization, right? So if we're in a very big organization which has a master data management function, and they have definitions of what data means, then roll with it. If you're not, and no one's really laying down the law of what is data and when it becomes information and when it becomes knowledge, then don't stress about it. Figure it out for yourselves within your organization. Figure out what works for you. Be pragmatic and practical, and talk about data literacy or talk about information literacy. Just go with whatever works, and let's not let, we can have academic debates about it at the next AIM conference. We can have a drink in the bar and discuss it all night, but let's not let it get in the way of doing the work.
Yeah, that's great. And if data or if information is the currency that fuels our transformation, every organization really needs to commit to becoming an information-driven or data-driven enterprise. And we shouldn't let that aspiration belong to just an isolated team of data scientists or data analysts, much like your CTO that gets all the budget and gets all the attention. It's really got to be a broader, holistic, multidisciplinary approach, but always keeps the business and the customer front of mind, because that is what's going to move attention. Thank you, Candace. I'm seeing in the chat. She says the people are the problem today and the potential solution tomorrow. There's far too much us versus them. So true. So AIIM practitioners, I think, can help their stakeholders understand both that value and risk. And I love what one CIP said, and this is very practical too, getting at the value. You have information everywhere, but you can't control what you can't see. I'd like to actually change that and say, shouldn't we change that to, you can't leverage what you can't see. So Jed, I'm going to leave you with a question, and I know we have some questions. What do you want our audience members to do differently or think differently about in 2022? That's a toughie.
So I want them to make the most of what we've been through. So if COVID has or has not changed their organization, why? Why did it or why didn't it? What has it changed or not changed about the way their organization thinks about its use of information? We go back to that saying, never let a good crisis go to waste. So look for the outcomes and the opportunities that they can capitalize on, And then, as you know, again, that time bounding thing, look at how we push that out for longer term effects. If you did good work to enable short term, continuation of work during COVID, how could that be taken and run with it and see if you can make it a longer term positive effect? But also, don't be shy, information management people. Get your heads above the parapet, get out there, get yourselves heard. You have expertise that can help business people solve their business problems. So don't be shy in letting them know that.
So you felt really strongly, Jed, about the answer to our poll question. So one of our audience members is not letting you off the hook on that. Which C-suite member do you think should ultimately be responsible for information management?
That's a good question. And I would almost say it comes back to the same answer as the data, information, knowledge. Do we care? Right? Do we really care what the label is as long as somebody has been empowered? So it can be a chief information officer, it could be a chief data officer, it could be, who knows, anyone in this, chief finance officer. So I'm just going to, sit on the fence there and say, I don't care about labels. I don't care where it sits, as long as it sits and somebody is empowered, and then they're empowered to enable us and our business friends to get the job done.
Well, that aligns with the question we asked on one of our coffee and conversations. When it comes to information governance in particular, where should it be located organizationally? And the conclusion was, it doesn't matter. But to your point, I want to be surrounded by people who get it, who understand, and not just the risk side, but understand what the potential is and the opportunities, but also has some influence in the organization. So that might be another good bit of advice. Surround yourself with those people, or go find those people that do. Yeah. Another question, Jed, and thank you all. Not too late to submit some. You can use the chat feature or the question feature. What advice can you give on how to balance security with accessibility? I think what this person means is, if information is too accessible, they may risk a breach, but if it's too difficult to access, then you risk internal folks looking for workarounds.
I feel I should turn the digital background off and show the swords and shields behind me.
There you go. Now would be a good time.
No. Okay. Consulting answer again. It depends. So risk analysis, cost benefit analysis. What is the information? What's the risk inherent in it getting out if you don't want it to get out? All right. Okay. This is why we have classification schemes. Is something public, restricted, confidential, etc. So, accessible versus secure. There is no single simple answer. The answer is you have to do the work to assess your risk, to assess the business context of making it open and free versus the security issues of doing that. And I know that's terrible, because if anyone's looking for Jed gave me the solution on the webinar, I'm really sorry. But I'm sure there are many in the AIM community. There's many good consultants out there who you can hire to help you. But yeah, I'm just going to say it's, you've got to do the work. You've got to figure that out, and it will be different in every use case.
So here's a way to wrap us up, really putting you on the spot. You talked about what you would like our community members to think about or do differently. What predictions do you have for the state of our industry next year?
I don't. Predictions are terrible, Peggy, because I'm always wrong.
That's all right. Give it a shot.
I think based on what's happened with COVID and pushing people to remote work, where the help isn't always at hand from the person in the next pod or the next desk. There isn't a walk-in help desk you can walk to, and things like that. I predict that organizations will put more effort into the information literacy or data literacy, depending on how we want to label it, because they'll have hopefully have noticed and have realized that, people can do really complex work if you give them the tools and the training, the education and the help and support. You can just leave them at home or wherever they are to get on with it if you've equipped them appropriately. And part of equipping people appropriately is the training and education to up their overall information literacy skills. And so I'm hoping, my prediction is that organizations will understand that and make the most of it, and make me prediction come true for a change.
Well, you heard it here, folks. We will be talking about data literacy, and we'll be talking about organizational agility. I think the two go hand in hand, and that's what I think we're looking at in 2022. We hope you're going to join us in Denver at the end of April. We haven't even launched anything, and already we've got pre-bookings on both sides. So we're super excited about that, but we'll be coming out with a splash in just a few weeks after the US Thanksgiving holidays. So be ready to push the button. Jed, it has been a blast. Thank you so much. Loved it. Next time, I promise everyone, we'll have you in your wonderful crusade outfit. So
a little bit later than that, but yeah, we'll see what we can do.
That's right. Thank you. That's fantastic. Thanks to everyone, and we'll see you again next time.
Thank you, Peggy. Thank you, everybody, for the questions. Hit the URL you can see on the screen, the other resources that were in the chat. I've been an AIM member for 20-something years, so if you're not a member, join up, it's worth it. And then come and have a look and see what Net Documents can help you figure out and help you with your business problems.
Yeah, thanks so much. And please, we've posted lots of good resources from Net Documents, and they serve a lot of customers, and I dare say I have seen a lot of issues that probably look a lot like yours. So thanks for helping us out here, Jed, and your colleague Britt, and we look forward to doing all sorts of fun things together in 2022. So
looking forward to Denver.
Yeah, good. Me too. All right, everyone, thanks again. We'll see you on a next AIM webinar or in your neck of the woods. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.